Well, we are about 30 days away from the presidential election and just a few hours away from the second presidential debate. It is all about the debate today. Both sides of this race are preparing this morning, and we are getting ready to speak with one of the leaders of the Trump campaign, and that is Senator Jeff Sessions from Alabama. We will get Sessions' commentary on that video and why Trump seems to be digging in and staying in this race, regardless of calls for him to step aside. In fact, some of those calls are looking at Governor Mike Pence. Should he be at the top of the ticket right now? Clinton and her team are on the attack, and they are ready for battle tonight. Joining me right now to preview what we might see is Ed Rollins, who we're going to see later on in the program once again. And Ed, good to see you.
Thank you.
You've been around this umpteen times. What's your take on this?
I've never seen one like this. This is a campaign that's you get a month to go, 4 weeks to go. It's almost a dead even race before this tape came out. Trump's had a bad 10 days. There's no question about that ever since the debate. But if he gets it back on issues and he gets it back on the difference between him and Hillary on the substance, the economy, his tax plan, he may get back in this race. If it's going to be a mud fight, you get in a mud fight, the only one that gets satisfied is the pig. Everybody else gets dirty. And my sense is they're expert at doing this, and it'd be a foolish battle for him. He doesn't have the team or he doesn't have the organization. His biggest problem is if for some reason the RNC decides to pull out, which is indications that there might be, then it's very hard for him to get through this race.
You know what strikes me, Ed? I mean, Donald Trump has said so many things over the last year. And in any other world, this race would have been over a long time ago. Donald Trump would have lost a long time ago. Right. What he said about John McCain, what he said about so many other things, and yet it's still at 50-50, Ed Rollins. And what strikes me is how unlikable she really is, that people are reluctantly or saying, okay, I'm not surprised at what he said, and staying with Trump, staying with change.
Well, the bottom line is they're not sure what kind of a president Trump will be. They think he's been a successful businessman, but he'll be better than what's there. And they know that she won't be. I think to a certain extent her policies are more taxes, more basically entitlement programs and what have you. And I think people just don't want to go back to that. But I'll tell you this, the warning sign right now is there is a slight erosion, and he's got to have women. He's got to have older women. He's got to basically have suburban women. He's basically got to have young women, and he's got to have the evangelicals to be supportive. And if any group starts to move away, it's this one. And so he's got to really do a lot of mea culpa. I'm sorry. It was me 10 years ago. It's not who I am today.
Yeah.
And move forward on that front.
All right, Ed, I'm going to talk more to you coming up in the program. I want to bring in Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions right now, a Trump campaign advisor. Senator, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria.
How does he dig in and say, I'm not quitting, when you've got the likes of Condoleezza Rice saying, please step down? You've got people within his party, Kelly Ayotte, saying there's no way I can endorse him, Jason Chaffetz. How does he believe he can move forward at this point?
Maria, this is a movement. It's not led from the top. It's led from the bottom. All the endorsements went to other people in the primary, and he crushed them. He beat 16 people. He had the largest number of votes any Republican primary candidate has ever gotten. So what he needs to do is return to his people and make sure that they understand who he is, what his vision for America is, and how what he's doing is authentic, it's truthful. He's going to help them with their daily lives. And what she is the typical politician he's been running against. And that is somebody who says one thing at election day and does another thing when she gets elected and takes office. And that's what those WikiLeaks show. She admitted openly that she has a secret plan contrary to what she publicly states.
Right. Well, look, authenticity is one word to put it. That's for sure with regards to Trump. But, Senator, let me ask you this. Put aside the vulgarity of what he said. That's bad enough. Let's put that aside for a moment and look at judgment. Even supporters this morning are saying, wow, bad judgment to speak this way. So how are supporters supposed to get over that? I'm not surprised that Donald Trump has said lewd things in private. I don't think many people are surprised. Donald Trump has said whatever he wants to say for the last year. But when you consider the fact that judgment is so critical to be the person in that Oval Office, how do people get beyond that?
Well, of course, it was 11 years ago when I thought he was in a private conversation, but it's a kind of language that he does need to apologize for, and he needs to apologize because it basically demeans women, and it's not respectful. And I think that's the fundamental problem there. It wasn't in the kind of illegal or extreme or malicious or mean-spirited comments. It was just it was very demeaning. So I think he needs to address that. He needs to apologize for it. But his advocacy for sound policies ending this unlawful immigration. Hillary Clinton said on those secret speeches that she believes in open borders, flat out. She believes in open borders. She won't tell the American people that, but her policies and Barack Obama's policies are open border policies. I've been saying it for years now.
Yeah.
So the American people are sick of this kind of one statement to them and another thing at Election Day. He's run against that all the way through. That issue has legs that will go to Election Day, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think those emails were damaging, but the spotlight on Donald Trump is bright right now, and here we are yeah, go ahead, Senator.
Well, I was just going to say, yes, it's a pile-on, a full-fledged attack on him. If they can decapitate the leader of this movement, they decapitate the movement. So this is a big deal. This time and his performance tonight and what happens in the next few weeks is important. And I think our Republican colleagues just need to take a deep breath here and slow down. We have a man who's bringing in new voters into our party. He's going to get an unprecedented number of union votes. He's getting good numbers among African Americans. So I think this is the kind of thing that we need to evaluate what's happening out there. And this issue of these tapes important right now, and it's hurt, but it's not the end of the game, I assure you.
Let me ask you about the debate. It's all about the debate now. This is probably the most important debate and most important presidential election in many of our lifetimes. So the last debate, there was a lot of talk that the entire debate, Donald Trump was on defense. He was explaining about how he started his business, explaining how his father may or may not have helped him, explaining his tax returns, explaining Miss Universe comments. How is he not on defense when he walks in there tonight? And how is this going to be a better debate performance than we had in the first debate, knowing that he is 100% on defense because of this tape?
Maria, it is not going to be easy. There's no doubt about it. It's easy for us to say you should pivot and to get on the offensive immediately. But for somebody who hasn't spent his life in politics, like Hillary Clinton has spent her life in politics, it's not as easy as people say. So you're right. It's going to be a challenge. And certainly Hillary has an answer for every single thing. She's a smooth talker. She talks. What Donald Trump is a builder, a doer, a man who wants results. And we haven't gotten results for the American people, and that's what he's selling, and that's what he needs to talk about.
Yeah, and that's what he's preparing for this morning?
Yes, he's been preparing. And, of course, you know, all this recent developments has got to have broken the plans that he had to focus on certain other issues. So it's going to be an interesting evening. He's going to have a very difficult challenge before him. But the man is talented. He's strong. He's courageous. And I think we're going to see the kind of performance and projection of his values and his vision for America that people want to hear.
Senator, real quick, you just mentioned the open borders. You've done so much good work on immigration, and I know that was one of the reasons that Donald Trump relied on you so much early in this campaign. Let me ask you about that and how you're going to push your agenda or that agenda, keeping Americans safe and policy around immigration regardless. I mean, how are you going to do that in Congress and the Senate?
Well, the most dramatic thing is the American people have to know Congress really can't get this done if the president won't even carry out the laws of the United States. And Hillary Clinton is to the left of Barack Obama. She has said repeatedly, for example, she wants to bring in 65,000 refugees from Syria. The Obama administration last year was 10,000. This is dramatic to the left of him on a host of issues. So if she's elected president, I'm not sure we can fix it. This may be the last chance for America to reestablish a lawful system of immigration. Remember, in that secret speech she gave that was revealed Friday, she said she believed in open borders.
Yeah.
Open borders. That is a radical position that cannot get the support of the American people. It will be in the forefront of November when people vote.
Is that the most important policy that Donald Trump needs to push, or is it his economic policy?
Well, I think it's the kind of policy that will go to November, because she says one thing in public and another in private. Trade is also, Maria. These trade agreements have not worked. I've studied them. I've voted for them in the past, but they're not working for the American people. They know it. And she says on that, in that speech to the big bankers who are giving her money, she said in that speech that she wants a free trade zone like the European Union for the Americas, the Western Hemisphere. We're not ready for that.
Yeah,
there's vast gulfs between our economies. The British are pulling out of the EU. We absolutely don't need to be going down that path or having a president with that as a secret agenda for our country.
But real quick, Senator, is a 45% tariff on China goods better?
Well, he never really said he wanted to do that. He said you can put that kind of tariffs up. He did say that, because some have estimated we're being cheated by that much. He just said you have to stand up for America and replace it. But he believes in trade. He absolutely does. He does not want to end trade. He just is going to use the powers that we have, the market power we have, the access they want in our market, to push back against unfair trading practices and defend American manufacturing and American workers. I really believe Donald Trump has got it right on trade, and he's a good negotiator, and he'll push back, and we'll get some improvement in our relationships with our trading partners.
Senator, we will be watching tonight. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Maria.
We will see you soon. Senator Sessions there. Hillary Clinton, meanwhile, facing a new email problem. Now, let's go to the other side. WikiLeaks are releasing thousands of hacked messages from her campaign chief, appearing to show excerpts from her paid Wall Street speeches. What does this latest document dump mean for tonight's debate and beyond? Follow me on Twitter, @Maria Bartiromo, @Sunday Futures. What do you want to hear from Gene Sperling? He's up next, and we're live. Stay with us. We're looking ahead on Sunday Morning Futures right now. Welcome back. Hillary Clinton potentially facing some big problems of her own this weekend, headed into tonight's town hall debate at Washington University in St. Louis after WikiLeaks released a trove of emails apparently hacked from her campaign chairman's account, containing thousands of messages revealing for the first time alleged excerpts of her paid speeches to Wall Street firms. Let's talk about it right now with Gene Sperling. He is a Clinton campaign senior economic advisor, and he is the former director of the National Economic Council for both Presidents Clinton and Obama. Gene, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks, Maria. It's good to be here.
All right, let's kick it off with these emails, Gene. And I think one of the most damaging out there is apparently from April 2013. And here is the quote. If everybody's watching, all of the backroom discussions and the deals, then people get a little nervous, to say the least. So you need both a public and a private position. She's talking about trade here and how she was brought up in a modest household, but now she enjoys a luxurious and rich life with her husband, Bill Clinton. So maybe she doesn't relate to those people who are struggling so much. So maybe she needs a private position on trade as well as a public position on trade. It's almost like, Gene, are you lying now or are you lying later? So what should we believe?
Well, So, Maria, first thing is, let's just recognize what we're talking about. I mean, it's hard to respond in the following way, Maria, which is that normally I would not respond to anything I didn't know was verified and said. This is, and let's remember how extraordinary this is. This is the Russian government hacking a senior official of a Democratic Party for the purpose of trying to help the Republican candidate. And this is the U.S. intelligence forces agreeing and verifying that you have Russian officials the Russian government trying to hack to affect our campaign. I don't know exactly what's in there, what's right, what's not right. This is, let's remember what this is. This is their version of what they said was a memo to John Podesta describing some excerpts. So, you know, I mean, for me, Maria, I feel like you want to ask me about what her positions are. I have known her for 24 years. I have worked with her on these positions. On Wall Street, I was there in 2007 and 2008 when she, long before, much before the worst of the crisis, called for a freeze on foreclosures, called for a freeze on adjustable rate mortgages going up, called for a homeowners fund, called for regulating derivatives.
Right.
I was there with her, with Gary Gensler and others early in the campaign when we talked about her talking about having a plan that was going to take on too big to fail and too big to jail. And if you look at what Hillary Clinton, she was the one who was talking very strongly about increasing clawbacks from executive compensation, et cetera, long before the Wells Fargo happened. So, you know, I don't know what excerpts came out of a line here or a line there, but let's look at her record. Let's look at what she has done and what she's put forward in these campaigns. She's opposed TPP. She was against
first she was for TPP, Gene. To be fair, first she was for TPP, and then she turned against it. And a lot of people basically feel like she should not have turned against TPP, by the way. A lot of people in her camp. They feel that we should have free trade.
Well, you know what, Maria? A lot of people get very excited about buying a house or buying a car, and then they kick the tires, they look in, and then they make a decision whether they're going to, you know, go forward or whether it's not a good enough deal to accept it. And in her case, she was working for a president who, with the best intentions, wanted to put together a trade deal that was going to isolate China, that was going to be much better than the deals we've had before. She was part of that team. She looked at, she worked on it.
Right.
Then she left and had to look 2 years later how it had turned out. She had to kick the tires.
Yeah.
She thought it was not strong enough on currency manipulation, on rule of origin.
Gene, stay right there. Stay right there, Gene. I want to keep this going, but we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Gene Sperling. Stay with us. Welcome back. I am joined right now by Clinton Campaign Senior Economic Advisor Gene Sperling. We're in the middle of a conversation. He's also the former director of the National Economic Council for both Presidents Clinton and Obama. And, Gene, before we went to the break, you basically said, look, Clinton looked at this. She kicked the tires on TPP. After first she was for it, she decided, you know what, this is not good and I'm going to be against it. Why is she against it? I mean, there's a lot of people out there, and you know, I'm speaking to CEOs of global businesses all the time, and they say, we want TPP. So what's the problem?
Look, I think Hillary Clinton feels the central issue in our campaign and in the country right now is middle class security, whether we have a broad, inclusive middle class, and whether or not we're reducing economic inequality. These are the central issues. And what she is focused on is whether we're having job creation that encourages location, value-added jobs in the United States. And I think, you know, she's not somebody who's always been for trade agreements. You know, the main multilateral trade agreement that took place when she was in the Senate was CAFTA, the Central American Free Trade Agreement, and she was against that. She has been case by case on trade, and she looks at what is the impact it's going to have on workers, on manufacturing. And again, I think when she looked at things like rule of origin, currency manipulation, other measures like that, she did not feel that this met her test for the type of job creation, and that she wanted the type of job creation initiative she wanted, and that she wants to put her focus on a plan that's going to focus on manufacturing, on small business, on infrastructure, things that will tighten the labor market further, lead to higher wages, and then things that will affect family security, like family medical leave, paid family medical leave, and child care. This is the heart and soul of her agenda. And I just think that for her, TPP didn't meet the test, and that, you know, has made clear that she is against it now and will be against it during the lame duck and after the campaign. But she is going to be fighting for a stronger economy that's going to work for middle-class families and for poor families to move up. That's the focus. And, you know, we understand people disagree. Look, President Obama, who her and I both work for, who we think is honorable, you know, not just an honorable man, but a champion of the middle class, disagrees. But this is where she is, and she did it by looking closely at the final deal. And I think that's what people would want of the president.
That's really what she's got to focus on tonight, right, for the debate. By the way, everything you just said, it sounds like she agrees with Donald Trump on TPP. But let me ask you about the debate and about economic policy, because you're so good on policy and you're there in St. Louis for the debate tonight. How is she going to walk this balance tonight, Jean, by talking about creating jobs when, in fact, we have an economy that is crawling along? You know, we just got the jobs numbers out on Friday, Jean. It was 156,000 jobs for the month of September, below expectations. A lot of people are upset. They haven't seen their wages moved in so long. How is she going to say, I'm going to create jobs, when, in fact, she's raising taxes on the highest earners? And, Jean, you and I know that's going to hit small business. If small business is the biggest creator of jobs, why are you raising taxes on small business, Jean?
Boy, you said a lot of things there. You know, I'm a Michigan football fan. We're fourth in the country now. We were 8-8 just a couple of years ago. So you know what we think? We think we've gotten way, way better. Not quite good enough yet. We'd like to get to #1 and beat Ohio State. Look at the U.S. economy. Barack Obama inherited it when we were on the verge of a depression. If you look at job creation, Maria, you've had 15 million private sector jobs over the last 5 or 6 years. That's the best since when? Since the Clinton administration. Better than any of the previous Republican administrations. And on wages, even on wages and income, you know, the census report just showed the largest one-time increase in household income, 2,800, 5%, and that wages are up 2.8%.
I know, but they're still
alone.
below the 90s.
Is that good enough?
They're still lower than when they were in the 90s.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. And so what it shows is that the kind of economic plan that focuses on the middle class has led to a lot of enormous improvement. A lot of reason things haven't been better is more that Republicans blocked things that Barack Obama was trying to do on infrastructure, on modernizing schools, on strengthening manufacturing. So I think what she's going to be saying is exactly that.
Well,
which
he
is
had
that
both
things
houses.
aren't good.
He had both houses on his team in the first 4 years, Gene,
Yeah,
and he still didn't make a big difference.
He had both houses on his team for the first 2 years. And what did he do? He helped take us from a near depression to out of recession in just 6 months. And you know, Maria, here's a trivia question. What was Mitt Romney's #1 goal when he ran in 2012? It was to reduce the unemployment rate to 6% by the end of 2016. So we're sitting here now with unemployment at 5%. It's been even lower. 15 million private sector jobs, a very strong job creation element. So I think, you know, I think she can say exactly that because of Barack Obama and because of that kind of focus, things have gotten stronger. But she can come in now not having to spend her first 2 years focusing on a financial crisis. She can zero right in on middle-class security, middle-class wages.
Yeah.
And, Maria, we are going to help the small businesses. She has a new small business tax cut, including a new standard deduction for small business, simplification, better tax cuts for small businesses, providing health care for expensing. But here's what she's not going to do. She's not going to use the pretext of small business to say that investment bankers, hedge fund managers, corporate tax lawyers get a 15% rate, which is what Donald Trump has.
Well,
at the same time, under Donald Trump's plan.
So you don't think lowering corporate
a worker
taxes
making 40,000 would pay a 25% rate. By his own plan, somebody making 40,000 pays a higher marginal rate than a person with business or partnership income making $4 million.
Well, where
yeah,
have the highest corporate taxes in the industrialized world gone us, Gene? 156,000 jobs for the month of September. I mean, come on. The last 8 years, we have been seeing these high taxes for corporates.
Maria,
they're not spending money, Gene. They're not investing in people.
Maria,
they're not investing in R&D.
Maria, you keep saying something that's just not correct, which is that the number of jobs being created over the last few years has not been strong. It's been so much stronger than any Republican administration we've seen in 20 years. And unemployment has come down to 5%.
Welcome back. I want to apologize for that rough out of our interview with Gene Sperling. My thanks to Gene Sperling, and my apologies that we had to get out of that interview with a hard break. Apologies, everybody. We will have Gene Sperling back very soon on the Fox Business Network as well as on this program. Meanwhile, it is round 2 for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump tonight. The pressure is on for the Republican nominee in tonight's debate, certainly. Trump comes into the matchup with eroding support from his own party following his latest controversy. The turmoil possibly adding to the unpredictable nature that already surrounds a town hall style format of tonight's face-off. Joining me right now are the two chairmen of the Debate Commission, Mike McCurry and Frank Fahrenkopf, co-chairman for the Commission on Presidential Debates. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
I should point out that
Nice
Mr. McCurry is also the former press secretary to President Clinton. Gentlemen, it is good to have you, and obviously the interest in tonight's debate could not be higher than it is right now. Let me ask you about the town hall format and why this format was chosen. Frank, kick us off here in terms of town hall versus one-on-one or one-on-two moderator style.
Well, it's also a change from town hall in the past, Maria, because previously we would have normally about 100 people from the statistical marketing area, the St. Louis area, that would be in bleachers. We felt that that was getting a little stale. And so what we've done this time is we sort of cut it in half. So we're only going to have about 40 people on stage who will have the ability to ask questions. We have two moderators, as you know, Anderson Cooper and Martha Raddatz. And they, for half of the debate, they're going to balance it, will also be asking questions that have come in through social media, or they themselves have selected questions. And it's to see the candidates in another environment rather than just standing behind podiums. We've had a town hall meeting since '92. That's when it was first put in place, and we've kept it every cycle since.
But Maria, let me make one point on this format too. You know, we do in the off years when there are no presidential debates here, our staff goes around the world to help consult with other countries. And one thing that they say over and over again is they think it's remarkable that in the American democratic system we have average citizens standing up and questioning our leaders. That doesn't happen in a lot of countries, and so that's another important aspect of this town hall format.
How do you make sure that the debate doesn't get dominated by sort of the news of the day? I mean, obviously tonight, and I know you gentlemen are not going to weigh in on this latest controversy around Donald Trump or around Hillary Clinton, but how do you ensure that, in fact, the questions that the American people want answered are looked at? For example, immigration, you know, vetting at our borders, jobs, and the economy and economic growth. How does it not get dominated by what Donald Trump said on a tape 11 years ago?
Well, I'll take a crack at that. You know, it's our two moderators, Anderson Cooper and Martha Raddatz. They control the questions, and they get to decide who gets to ask what. Now, the other point is that we've got real American citizens that are there on the stage asking questions. And I think it's much more likely that they're going to talk about and ask about the things that are on their mind: immigration, economic policy, trade, as you were just talking about with Gene, you know, issues that really are on the minds of the American people. Yes, the media is, you know, currently consumed in the frenzy over some of the issues that have erupted in the last couple of days. But, you know, it'll be up to these citizens and then the moderators who actually pick the questions, and they'll get a chance to kind of talk to these town hall participants, find out what's on their mind. Right. And then they get to select from that what are we going to really talk about at this debate tonight. And hopefully it'll be a lot more than just what the current controversy of the day is.
How are the moderators chosen?
Well, that's one of the hardest things we have to do, Maria. We watch a great deal of television because we've pretty much decided over the years that we've got to go to the electronic media, although we may make some changes in the future, for people who are used to working with this in their ear, because the moderator is, you know, has a connect with the producer off stage, has to keep time. We also watch to make sure that we're not talking about someone who's biased one way or the other. We try to find people who are going to go right down the middle. It's a very, very difficult thing for us to do. We also look for diversity. And we're actually quite proud of the people that we came up with in this series of debates. But it's a very, very hard decision, because normally what happens, whoever thinks maybe they lost the debate, they blame it on the moderator. So right. You got to have a lot of gumption to do this. It's not easy.
Did both campaigns have to weigh in and give an okay to each moderator?
No, we are very clear about that. They do not get a chance to vet the moderators. We use our best judgment, and then we basically advise the campaigns that this is who we've selected and that we're going with.
That's a change that's really come about. There used to be a debate over debate. Remember, Maria, for a long time. We picked the dates, we picked the locations, we picked the format, and we picked the moderators without consultation.
Will the moderators know what the audience wants to ask? In other words, will the moderators see the questions in advance? And of course, will the candidates see the questions in advance?
No.
Well, they need to, and they will have an opportunity to get to know the 40 citizens that will be sitting there on stage today. They'll have a good idea of what kinds of questions that they want to ask. The moderators,
not the candidates.
And the campaigns, the candidates, and we on the commission will have no idea what's being asked. And then, of course, they will also be screening some of the questions coming in from social media, from Facebook, who's one of our partners in this debate, Twitter, other social media sites. So they will know what kinds of questions they want to do, but it's up to the moderators to work that into the program. They've got an extraordinarily difficult challenge, I think, even more so than Lester Holt and then your colleague Chris Wallace, who will moderate the third debate. This one is probably technically a lot more challenging, so we've given them a very hard assignment.
Yeah, well, congratulations to the both of you. It's going to be widely watched. We will be there and talking about it the next day. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Maria.
Thank you.
We will see you soon. Let's get a look at what's coming up. Media Buzz. Howie Kurtz in St. Louis today. Howie, good morning to you.
Lost audio. Lost audio.
Doesn't look like Howie has my audio. He's not hearing me. He's in St. Louis. We're going to take you back to St. Louis shortly. How are you there?
Hello, Maria.
Hello.
I'm here. Sorry, we had a little audio problem.
We'll see you in 20 minutes. What's coming up?
There's been one story that has dominated the media for the last 48 hours.
Really?
That, of course, the old Trump tape on Access Hollywood. We're going to look at whether that's over the top, with the media trying to push Donald Trump out of this race, and we will talk to the reporter who broke the story. Much more here coming from St. Louis.
How long did they sit on that story before releasing the tape, Howie? That's what I was interested in knowing earlier.
At least a year.
How long have
Either
they
nobody
known they
looked for
had
it.
that tape of Donald Trump?
It's amazing that it took this long to come out, and now it comes out on the eve of the second debate. Some suspicious questions about the timing here.
All right, what a coincidence. Thank you, Howie. We will see you in 20 minutes. I want to see what you have to say about that. What can we expect tonight? Our panel is next, and it's a good one. Stay with us. Welcome back. Take a live look at Washington University in St. Louis. The action has begun. The site of tonight's second presidential debate. It's going to be big, where Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton will face off amid twin controversies this weekend. I want to bring in our panel right now. Ed Rollins is the former campaign manager for the Reagan-Bush ticket in 1984. He's the chief strategist for a Trump super PAC. Shelby Holliday, senior video reporter for the Wall Street Journal, is with us today. And Tony Sayegh is Republican political strategist, executive vice president of Jamestown Associates, and a Fox News contributor. Good to see everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Ed Rollins, you're still on that super PAC. A lot of your colleagues in the GOP are walking away from Donald Trump.
I sort of have always operated out of the fact that when you're in one of these battles, it's like being in the Alamo. There's no back door. You stay in this thing and you finish it. Donald Trump earned the nomination. He now has to try and bring people to the game. Politics is a game of addition, and from here on out, he's got to add voters every single day and not lose voters.
Can he survive this, Shelby?
Tonight's a huge night for him. I mean, I can't emphasize how much is riding on the debate. He needs to prove that he's the change agent as well as a changed man, and he needs to take a page out of the Pence playbook, which is deflect and attack Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton's dealing with some of her own fallout, and if he cannot emphasize that, it may be over.
I think it's a good point that you make in terms of a changed man, because, Tony, that's one of the things that he said in that apology. I've met a lot of people over the last year.
Sure.
I've heard them. I've changed. Do we believe it?
And these comments were made 11 years ago at a very different time in Donald Trump's life, with certainly different priorities. He was much more of an entertainment celebrity. So clearly every person has a chance to evolve and also be redeemed. And I think that's a point he'll make tonight. Let's also remember something else. I would suggest taking a page out of the Bill Clinton playbook in 1992, when he was barraged by a lot of scandal related to sexual innuendo and infidelity, and Bill Clinton just charged and plodded on. He did not allow that to stop him. He campaigned for every vote, worked really hard, and look what ultimately happened.
Yeah.
The American electorate has a very interesting aspect to them. We are big believers in redemption and contrition. So tonight, Donald Trump has to be candid and he has to be contrite. If he doesn't do that, it's going to be very hard to pull off this next one.
One very important to that point. These are cumulative damage. If he hadn't gone after Miss Universe after the last debate, which did severe damage to him, probably more damage than he did in not having a good debate, it just adds up. And it basically, and so from here on out, his whole thing has got to be, he's got to have his wife by his side, his daughter by his side. He's going to be talking about issues that matter to women, because women are the key to this election right now.
Yeah, but let's not forget, he goes into this debate on defense. And that first debate, that's what the problem was. As soon as he walked out to the stage, he was on defense. So once again, again, he finds himself explaining. Look, I'm not surprised that Donald Trump might make a lewd comment in private. And I think most people will say that. He's shown us who he is. He says what's on his mind. And maybe he has changed in that regard, by the way. But he's still going to be explaining rather than communicating his message.
Well, he has to go from being an entertainer, which is what he's been, and he always slides back and forth, to being a real leader who's advocating a change policy in Washington, and that's what he needs to talk about.
There's a key block of the Republican base that is extremely enthusiastic about voting for Donald Trump. They've stuck by him through comments about Judge Curiel, about Khizr Khan. They will not go anywhere after these comments, but there are these voters who have essentially decided they will hold their nose and vote for Donald Trump.
That's right.
Those are the people he needs to speak to tonight. And Hillary Clinton, on the flip side, it's up to her to seal the deal. She's going on an early voting tour after this debate to try to tell people, get out there tomorrow and cast your ballot.
That's what I feel so extraordinary about it. I mean, it really strikes me that this would have been over if it were any other candidate on the other side. But Hillary Clinton is that unliked, that disliked, that actually it's still 50-50.
Look, there's a belief that she's fundamentally corrupt and pathologically dishonest, and people aren't excited about her as the alternative. Two important things to remember, Maria. Donald Trump has to turn this conversation into, I may have said certain things, she has done certain things, and point out the foundation, Benghazi, the email scandal. That's the important pivot, number one. Number two, this revelation does not change the macro dynamic of this election, which is this is a change election, and Donald Trump is the candidate of change. He's strongest when talking about the economy, jobs, trade, immigration. If he can pivot properly, he can certainly win back a lot of that.
That's a good point.
People care about that.
I want to talk about that after this short break, because it is very soon now looking like a campaign of what he said versus what she did. More from the panel right after this short break. We are just hours away from the second debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. The candidates are facing off tonight in St. Louis as new polls find Clinton with an advantage in two key battleground states. In Pennsylvania, Clinton has a 12-point lead in a four-way race. And in Florida, the race is closer. Clinton ahead by 3 points, which is within the margin of error. We're back with our panel, Ed Rollins, Shelby Holliday, and Tony Sayegh this morning. What do you think about the polls, Ed?
Pennsylvania was something we were hopeful for, although we've not won it since 1988 in the past. But it was a state that was ideally suited for him in the sense of a lot of blue-collar union laborers. I think it's gone now, and unfortunately, I think it's gone. I think they've run a better campaign there. Florida is the key here. If we lose Florida, we can't win this presidency. I think we're in good shape in Ohio, although I'm disappointed that the Senator Portman, who's run a brilliant campaign there, is really the key. So you have the senator and the governor still against Trump there, so we need Ohio. We lose Ohio with them.
But some of these guys and gals who are right now in their own re-election campaign, even if they're going to go behind closed doors and vote for Trump, they can't tell the world that they're going to do that because they're in a re-election.
They're in a re-election. The problem we face today is we're going to still be a splintered party when we get this thing done. And what you need is, if Trump wins this thing, he has to try and bring the party back together again. If Trump loses this thing, then the party's going to have a holy war.
So if Pennsylvania is not there, does he still have a path to win?
Absolutely.
I think it's a tough path because if he can't win Pennsylvania, that makes it, the numbers look really tough for him in places like New Hampshire and Michigan and Wisconsin, even Ohio, some of these Rust Belt states he was hoping to win. And if he loses Pennsylvania, he has to make up for it somewhere else. A lot of these insiders are saying that one of the reasons why these GOP officials are abandoning Trump right now is the ship was already sinking. And these polls came out before his tapes were released.
Yeah.
And in Pennsylvania, the numbers are so bad, he's losing white women, a key block of the Republican base. He's losing men, and he's losing these white educated voters.
He's not losing small business.
No.
They're all in for Donald Trump, I'll tell you. When I walk around, anecdotally, they're desperate for change.
And it doesn't matter what he says. They say they have to vote for him because their livelihoods depend on it.
That's right.
So look, Pennsylvania was always kind of a silver bullet strategy. Had he been able to win Pennsylvania, and I still believe to some degree everything's still on the table, particularly in the upper Midwest and the Rust Belt, it would have made his map a lot easier. He could probably even have gone to 300 electoral votes. You only need 270. There are a consortium of smaller states where Trump still is doing extraordinarily well. Iowa with 6 electoral